3DMJers, I cannot believe it, but I am 6 days out from my first show of the season. I promised I would get another vlog in, and we're doing it just in the nick of time. This will be a great catalog of what's been going on since my last video. This is video 3 in this series, and the main thing I want to focus on is the last couple months where I've finally come into my own, gotten to shape, and done it while managing having an event almost every single weekend throughout all of August and September. And I want to talk about how inevitably contest prep will get hard and why it's so valuable to have people in your corner and to try to remain objective, because I did have some struggles which are going to be comical and perhaps TMI, but we'll get into it. So first, what's been going on? Well, I had that big trip to Europe back in the middle of the year, and I knew that the last big hurdle I would have before all of my travel was exclusively for competing was a 3-pronged trip that I had that started in Bali, the global education event for Technogym, which I was invited to speak at, the Insider Advantage event, which was a media-hosted event, full recorded, live streamed for a special audience where we filmed a lot of content for Optimum Nutrition, who I'm now partnering with, both in my research. They're funding my research, which is awesome, as well as being an educational ambassador for them. And then finally, the EPC, the European Powerlifting Conference, the 5th year I've done it, and had 3 years running leading up to COVID, 2017 through 2019, and they brought it back last year, and I was so fortunate to come back this year, which is just basically the best event as far as powerlifting outside of an actual competition. In addition to that, I was also the head judge for the bodybuilding and men's physique at the WNBF New Zealand Auckland show. The first year here in WNBF New Zealand, we brought a show to Auckland. Finally, also JPS Health and Fitness out in Melbourne. They brought me over for the Ultimate Physique Conference, and I got to present alongside of other evidence-based content creators, athletes, and coaches in the physique space. So all of that has happened since my last update. October 4th, I'll be competing in Taiwan in 6 days, and the pro bodybuilding division, as well as the amateur men's physique division. And that's all on day 1 on Saturday. So that's good news. I only have to peak on one day. But October 4th, that was my competition. So when I was thinking, okay, I'm at the end of August, we're inside of 2 months out. So this is game time. I need to get into peak condition, and we need to do the things we need to do to make sure that I'm on point. So I was a little more diligent with making sure that all my I's were dotted, my T's were crossed. I was still auto-regulating things, and I knew that going overseas for the Ultimate Physique Conference would be an easy way to manage this. A big shout out to Sam, Jacob, and everybody at JPS who made this conference possible. It was a short trip. Melbourne's very close to Auckland. I stayed with Sam and his awesome family. I trained at JPS Health and Fitness. Big shout out to Martin Ruffalo, Dr. Martin Ruffalo. He was one of the presenters as well, as was Sam. I trained with Brandon Kempter, probably one of the best natural bodybuilders in all of Oceania, who is shredded. Didn't miss any training, ate very well. Also got to practice my posing, working my back relaxed, which you can see here under the guidance of the WNBF Pro Leah Marie. She is the president of WNBF Australia. She was out there preaching the good word of WNBF Australia to the attendees of the Ultimate Physique Conference. So it was a really good event. I talked about biomechanics for bodybuilding. I was one of the many presenters. A big shout out to Richard Physique Code on Instagram. Richard Collins is a great coach. There's just a lot of good people in Australia. It was a whirlwind trip. I was there for 2 days. The next weekend, came home, I'm training, I'm pushing. Not a crazy deficit, just trying to lose steadily because I'm ahead of the game and not wanting to get too flat, not wanting to lose muscle. It's that critical phase of prep. And then I got to be a part of the WNBF Auckland show. The first year it's come up from Christchurch, it's come to Auckland, and I got to have my first head judging experience. And there were some really awesome athletes. The bodybuilding winner was absolutely shredded. We awarded a pro card in bodybuilding as well as men's physique, and it was a privilege and an honor to be the head judge there. And of course, that was just one day, the better part of an afternoon. I trained afterwards, trained the day before. So that was easy to manage, but it was just a cool experience to get motivated by these athletes. And then it was September 3rd before I knew it, just a few days later, and I flew out to Bali. So Technogym, who I've got this relationship with. I've been doing educational work with them, doing some advising on biomechanics and bodybuilding as they're making a push into new markets, which I'm a big fan of. They asked me to speak at their global education event, and this is the first year they did it out of Italy. And since the Asian market is growing and so strong, they did it in Bali. So this event was hosted by the Oceania region education team. So big shout out to Reese James. Big shout out to everybody at Techno Gym. They had me out, and all the other presenters, just great people. I mean, there's too much to go into, and I don't want to privilege certain people or not mention others, but it was a great time. And I'm so proud and honored to be a part of that. I actually was having to eat 25, 26, 2,700, 2,800 calories, which is a solid 1,000 more than my kind of deficit days, just to not flatten out, get dehydrated in the heat in Bali, and actually lose too much weight. So to take a step back, this trip would go for 2 weeks starting on September 3rd. And the goal for me was to not lose weight, not flatten out, not get sick, cross 3 different time zones from New Zealand to Bali to London and Ireland within a span of 2 weeks, maintain my training, and essentially take a diet break. Because if we tried to lose weight under those conditions with sacrificed sleep, crossing time zones, a 17-hour flight from Doha to Auckland, or 15 or 16 hours, it would have been a bit of a nightmare. So I did a pretty good job, but what ended up happening was I did get really lean while there. I kind of ticked over to that last conditioning area, so the diet break went pretty well, but there was fat loss almost inevitably just because of the hectic scheduling trip and me erring on the side of caution. I did come back, and once my weight stabilized, which I'll get to in a moment, things were looking even better, which we'll talk about after a bit of a transition. So plant that seed of the conflict that this video will have, and then we'll have the resolution. So winding back, I was in Bali, 2.5-day presentation event at Wanderlust, which is like this fitness compound for functional fitness. And there was a mixture of people from all over Asia, 11 different countries represented. We're talking Korea, we're talking Japan, we're talking China, we're talking Thailand. Of course, local delegates from Indonesia, but also people coming from Malaysia, Singapore, you name it. And it was a really cool experience, but it was a challenge as an educator, because I had to teach to people, some of whom had master's degrees in physical therapy, were actual osteotherapists, some who had pro status in a bodybuilding organization and a master's degree in sports science, who knew exactly what I was talking about, sitting next to a wellness director at a spa who doesn't even lift weights. So I had to find a way to communicate this information to people who are trying to stay up to date with fitness knowledge and be educated, but may or may not have actually had the educational background that someone else did in the same audience. A big thank you to them for making me a part of it. And that was 5 days in Bali. First time I was in Bali. I've never been there before. Big shout out to Brandon Kempter, who lives there with his partner, and he showed me around, took me to their awesome gym. But here's the thing. Bali is a developing nation, and it's really important to stay on top of things to make sure that when you travel, you set yourself up for success, especially in the vulnerable state as a physique athlete. So now we get to practical application. So how did I do this trip going across multiple time zones? First thing I did was, for all of my flights, I found low-calorie options. Sometimes if you look at the special meals, they have a low cholesterol, low fat, or actually a low calorie option depending upon the airline. And these are typically pretty damn good. And they come with like egg whites, chicken breast, white fish. And worst case scenario, what you can do is just often order a fruit platter, which is a small amount of fruit. We're talking less than 200 calories. And then you just want to have your own protein, whether that's, a Quest bar, that's a protein shot, something like that. And you can really make things work on the plane. The second thing you want to do is think about the circadian rhythm shift. So when I'm going to Bali from New Zealand, I'm kind of going back in time. So we're ahead of them by, I think at the time it was 5 hours. We just had a time zone shift here. We had daylight savings. So what I did was I started to stay up a little bit later the first couple days before I left to try to get closer to the time zone in Bali. And then when I flew out, I made sure to train on the day that I left and the day I arrived during daylight to get sun exposure and to get my circadian rhythm going. This is all an evidence-based strategy. I also took melatonin at bedtime for the time zone I was going into and stayed up as long as I could on the flight to get into the right time zone. So these are the strategies you want to use. Melatonin, it's called a sleep aid, but more accurately, it's a circadian rhythm shifter. And it's often overdosed, especially in the States. I just take a 1 milligram tab. That's it. And that's all you need. In fact, 500 micrograms is sometimes an effective dose. And any higher than 3 milligrams, and you're getting outside of what's actually evidence-based and is probably providing you maximum efficacy. Being active during the daylight, and importantly, not eating at what would be biological night for where you're going. Is that easy during contest prep? Sometimes having large stints of time where you're awake because it's hard to sleep and not eat? No. But is it a good decision? Yes. Making sure you're not getting caffeine at a later time period and only using caffeine early in the morning to help you kind of stay on the times when you're trying to go to and letting that sleep pressure accumulate. This was really good because it was getting me a little bit closer to going to the UK, where I left on the 8th out of Jakarta of September to go there, where I would be for the next 7 days of the trip. So the first week was in Bali, the second week was in London and Ireland. Now, importantly, the time zone difference between New Zealand, all the way down in the southern hemisphere, our little lonely island, to the lonely island of the United Kingdom, the British Isles, is on like the other side of the world. It's quite literally basically the same time zone, the same time most of the year, just switching AM to PM. So I think at the time when I went there, when it was 8 a.m. here, it was something like 6 p.m. there. So I had a huge amount of hours and time zones to acclimate to. And normally it takes me 4 or 5 days, even doing all those strategies correctly, to get on European time. But the good news is that this intermediary trip to Bali, the week in Bali, and within 2 days, I was able to acclimate fully to that time zone because it was pretty close. Southeast Asia is not that far from New Zealand. And that got me about, I think, 4 or 5 hours closer to London. After I got done teaching in Bali, especially on that half day, and I didn't have any responsibilities in the morning, for the last night, I stayed up as late as I could. I made it to about midnight, and I want to say that put me at 6 p.m. London time, which was great. So now I'm actually pretty close to where I need to be. And just a few more nights of kind of shifting late, I knew that I would be able to acclimate to London time. So I got up first thing in the morning. I had, breakfast. I trained. And then on my first flight out, which was 7 hours long, I did not let myself sleep. And I did not eat during nighttime in London. I made sure to keep on track. And then the second 7-hour flight, it started, I think, at what would be 11 p.m. time in London. So I didn't eat on that flight. In fact, what I did was I took melatonin. I tried my best to sleep. Did it go well? Decent. I probably got 4 hours of sleep on that flight. Fortunately, I'm getting flown out by Optimum Nutrition and Technogym. Very privileged, so I got in business class, which gave me a lot more comfort than I would have in economy. So some of this, won't apply to you if you're flying in coach like I normally do when I'm not being flown out by a larger company. So I was very grateful for that, especially in prep. And that was very important because the event that I went to London for was hosted by Optimum Nutrition. And I'm very proud to announce that Optimum Nutrition has a mutual partnership with me now. Is it a conflict of interest? To some degree, but I think it's one that I'm happy to manage because the contract that we have just means that I provide education related to ingredients and third-party testing, and they want me to stay as an independent voice and researcher. So I had to consult with AUT, discuss things with the head of department, our dean, our lawyers, as well as sign a contract with Optimum Nutrition to make sure that I could stay as independent as I needed. And they contracted me as an educational ambassador, and they were also generous enough to give to the research that we're doing, which goes right to my students here at AUT. So this mutually beneficial educational platform that Optimum Nutrition is giving me was something that's really inspiring to me because big brands right now are noticing that evidence-based nutrition and training like Technogym and Optimum Nutrition is hot. Are they doing it for purely altruistic reasons? No. They are, of course, big businesses. They have bottom lines. But right now, that bottom line aligns with also providing true educational support and platforms to educate the consumer. They, not only brought me on board as one of the Optimum insiders, but also Professor Stu Phillips, Shona Helston, Kirstie Elliott Sale, and top coaches and influencers who are evidence-based in the Asian region, and also the UK. So top tier sports nutritionists, bringing on a lot of really good people. We had this big event where they invited media and also social media and YouTube content creators to come and listen to us give this full day event on informing people about protein intake, sex differences, creatine, recovery, you name it, in the realm of physiology and nutrition. And it was hosted by none other than Sigma Nutrition Radio's Danny Lennon. So I see it as a big win-win, but it meant that I had a full 14-hour workday, because we basically got up, went through a rehearsal, and the next day it was basically 9 to 5 doing that event, and then 5 to 11 p.m. filming all the content that we're going to be releasing on social media for the rest of the year. And I was there a few days earlier, which was great. I got to get onto the right time. And the Opti Nutrition team, big shout out to Creona Tobin, Dr. Creona Tobin, who hosted this and really was the architect of the whole thing, and the whole Opti Nutrition UK team. And they also helped me get to just across the water to Ireland so that I could do, finally, the trip ending with the European Powerlifting Conference. Again, done this 5 times. I was there with Mike Toucher. I was there with Kedrick Kwan. I was there with world champion Gustav Hedlund. Just a lot of great people who are from kind of the old guard of my generation of powerlifting coaches, content creators, and athletes, and this new guard that's bringing up the sport. And a huge shout out to Garbin and City Gym Limerick, Arthur Lynch, and all of the people who make the EPC what it is. They're so incredibly welcoming. It's a home away from home for me, and it's a privilege and an honor to present alongside the top brass of powerlifting. And then I got to train over there at City Gym Limerick, which is a fantastic community-based gym led by Gar and his team. Anyone who's there, I can't recommend it highly enough. Fantastic powerlifting gym, as well as just community gym. And then I flew out on the 15th and had a full day of travel to get all the way back home on the 17th. And I got back and I was shredded but dehydrated. Wasn't sure how the diet break went. I hit an all-time contest prep low of 80.1 on the scale. And the cool thing is that I'm looking just as diced as I was at Worlds in 2023. And this was a dehydrated post 15, 16-hour flight from Doha. And the lowest weigh-in I saw during 2023 was 78.1. So a similar dehydrated condition after a long flight. So I think I'm legitimately up 2 kilograms of stage weight, which is huge, 4.5 pounds. And also I realized that was a dehydrated weigh-in because my body was holding on to so much water for multiple days, and my body weight just steadily ticked up and up and up and up and up over this last week for multiple reasons. One, my urination frequency wasn't going up despite the fact that I was drinking more and more fluids. I was obviously trying to shift back to the right circadian rhythm and time zone here in New Zealand. So my sleep was impacted. I felt really weird and low energy. And most importantly, and the thing that I said is going to be a little bit TMI, it took me a week to have a bowel movement. And this really freaked me out. It had me looking bloated, feeling bloated. I was even getting some stomach pains. And when it finally did happen, man, I was relieved. But this is what contest prep can do to you, especially if you traverse 3 time zones in the span of 2 weeks. And I did a really good job doing everything I could, and I still had to deal with that. The good news is my body weight is stabilized around 82. And that is because we're doing what we describe as kind of a linear load. So Berto is guiding me, and I'm almost sending him daily videos and pictures through leading into Taiwan. We want to get my physique looking full. We want to recover from all the travel I just did. And I'm really pleased to see how my physique is responding. First thing in the morning, this is a video you can see most recently of what I look like, kind of crisp, shredded, but dehydrated and a little bit flat. And then this most recent video is what I look like 6 days out post-workout after having had about 4 high days. I'm a little bit less crisp, a little watery, but this shows me the level of fullness that I can have. And I actually weighed in at 82.8 this morning, had a slightly higher sodium dinner, so this is probably going to come down. But I anticipate that my morning weigh-in in Taiwan in about 6 days will probably be no lower than the high 81s and probably in the low 82s. once kind of my water balance stabilizes from being there, and I keep running roughly maintenance intake. The plan for peaking for Taiwan in 6 days is I'm going to keep running kind of maintenance calorie intake through about Monday or Tuesday, and then we're going to bring it down a little bit and then coast in. So I tend to have a slower metabolism and slower return to water homeostasis. I'm still a reasonably large human. I'm 6 feet tall and I get on stage over 80 kilograms and I have a fair amount of muscle. So I still need a lot of carbohydrates, but it means that we have to do a moderate load over multiple days and then give myself, 2 to 3 days to kind of clean up, reestablish a water homeostasis and clean up at a low intake, but not so low that I start to flatten out again. So it's a bit of a delicate balance, and it also means that on game day, I don't eat very much. I'll be competing around 2 to 3 p.m. In both the bodybuilding and then the amateur physique division or classic physique division. So it means I'll probably have breakfast, stay hydrated, but not overly hydrated, and I'll make sure that my electrolytes are online, but I eat pretty minimally on show day, and we'll see exactly what that looks like. We just want to make sure I don't lose that look. But this is the best I've looked 6 days out, and I'm really proud of it. I've been turning over every stone I can and still not following my duties as an educator and not taking advantage of these awesome opportunities that I have with Techno Gym, Optimum Nutrition, EPC, JPS, doing the Ultimate Physique Conference, and also WNBF New Zealand. So I've really been trying to do my diligence to give back to the community, to be an educator, and while still being the athlete I want to be. But it has been hard, and it really did get in my head that that my body weight swung up really 2.5 kilos over several days, and that I did not have a bowel movement for 7 days, and I just seemed to be getting watery throughout the day. I was a bit of a head case. I was able to manage it, but the critical reason I was able to is because I had Berto and also Brian in my corner, and I was talking to them almost daily. And now I'm sending them videos either once or twice a day as we get into this peaking phase, because now it's game time. And then I have November 8th, the Mayhem Pro-Am show in Sacramento, California that Bob and Tina are putting on. And then, of course, WNBF Worlds on the 22nd and 23rd of November. So I've got 3 shots to really bring my best, and I'm confident that the Taiwan show I will do really well. I'm excited to see everybody there. And there are some amazing competitors in the Taiwan show. They're announcing the pros as we go. I got to meet Yuva Prakash, who is a natural bodybuilder out of India. He has an amazing physique. We did a little pose down together while we were in Bali. And we also took some great pictures. And I was so honored that he and some of his colleagues came specifically to see my talk and to meet me. But he's going to be competing in WNBF Taiwan, as well as Sho Sagara from Japan. And they've announced me as one of the pros who are competing there. There's also going to be 3 pro cards in bodybuilding awarded at the show. And then those athletes will get the opportunity to compete in the pro bodybuilding division. So one thing I will do, if there is a live stream, once I hear about it, I'll announce that on my social media. And thank you all for your support, and I can't wait to represent Team 3DMJ at WNBF Taiwan.